the first time. I don't know why.
No problem.
It's not that long. That would be an awful lead-in if that was the case.
Yeah, that's a long time for it to catch up.
The hard part is I did what show was that? I think I did it with the other podcast. They Live by Film or something else recently, and it cut off like 10 seconds of audio. I just didn't know that it was going to be that bad.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the worst, especially, you know what it was? It was my sales post for last week that I put up a video like an hour long, and it cut off my audio in the beginning and the end, and I had no idea that it would.
Technical issues are the worst.
Alrighty. Hey, everybody. I am here, and I have a friend whose name is not Foo for Thought, although that's what you're seeing on your screen. His name is Sean, and I believe I'm getting this right. You're in UK, correct?
I'm not in the UK. I'm actually in Maryland. I am from the... Obviously, the ridiculous accent tells you that I'm from the UK, but I am...
For some reason, I thought you were all recording over there.
No. I'm in the sunny US of A.
I am actually, well, maybe I should bring that up in just a minute. So obviously, this is Sean, and you can see he's got the name Foo for Thought here because he is from an excellent podcast called Food, or not Food. I did the same thing that happened in the last episode that I just listened to. Foo for Thought podcast. They do a lot of really great things, focusing on, as you may, conjure in your mind when you read the terms Foo for Thought, a lot of Asian cinema. It's not all kung fu, it's not all martial arts, but it is a wide array of things, and they are a trio of individuals that banter amazingly, and I highly suggest everybody check them out. Links will be in the description below. But otherwise, welcome. Hello. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor to be on the show. I'm very happy to be here.
For everybody that is here for the live shows frequently, Sean is a part of a lot of our live shows, whether on this channel or with Flip on Discovering Cinema, and he is great. Always a great contributor. Really great taste in films. I find that I align with you a lot more than Flip. I found. So that would, it speaks to my taste, which means today we are talking about horror. And obviously there are a lot of channels on YouTube that spend a lot of time on horror. So I try to branch out quite a lot. I don't spend a lot of time in horror, but it is my favorite genre. And
it's, I grew up with horror being my primary genre. I got into horror way before any Asian cinema at all. I was part of when I was in my early teens, I got into the video nasties in the UK. I'm sure you're familiar with those. And it was my goal to basically find uncut versions of all the video nasties films. So I spent a lot of time on eBay trying to get my hands on what were technically illegal uncut movies. So really that was my kind of jump into the horror genre.
And now we are in the golden age of video nasties with things being released with, Arrow just put out that Don't Go in the House with 3 or 4 different cuts, and stuff coming out from Severin that has never seen the light of day suddenly coming out on home video in better shape than we could have ever imagined.
It's incredible. It's an amazing time to be a movie fan in general, but specific genres like horror is just a great time.
I agree. Obviously, a lot of this channel is based on physical media. So what is your history with physical media?
Really, it starts... I could literally lean forward right now from where I'm sitting and pull one of my many VHSs up. It started with VHS back in the day, and really... it's kind of in my early teens, I started buying the odd VHS here and there, and then I got really into Kung Fu films, strictly Kung Fu films, and that's really where my collection of physical media started. And then when I hit about 15 years old, I bought everything. That's really when I got into cinema or into movies. And I just had... Back then, I was still living with my mum, and I just had a room full of DVDs. You couldn't move for DVDs. They weren't even shelved. They were tossed into wardrobe. They were just all over the place. And then as I've gotten older, I've relinquished... So actually, it was DVDs back then. It wasn't Blu-rays. So I relinquished some of my older DVDs, and now I'm starting to recollect the collection I had back then. So I'm in a good place. I've got a fairly decent Blu-ray collection. I've kind of got my Asian cinema separate from my mainstream and like horror and things like that. So I'm not as risk taking as some people when it comes to physical media, meaning I'm not one of those people who will splurge on, like I think you actually have it, the guest box
Right.
that you have with the soundtrack on it.
Yep.
That's fairly, it's a very special release, but I'm not quite at that point where I'll splurge for that big of a release, but I'll still pick up as many, boutique labels that put out good stuff that I can, really.
Of course. And frequently, a lot of the movies that you cover on the podcast are recent releases from things like 88 Films and Eureka. Is it the assumption that those are your two favorite boutique labels nowadays?
It's safe to assume that, yeah. I think they're just doing amazing work. Obviously, Arrow are quickly coming up to be one of those big ones, when it comes to Shaw Brothers. So they've got the Shaw Scope, box sets that it's unbelievable that they're going to be available. So, but Eureka and 88 Films are the ones that are basically leaving my wallet empty at the moment.
And that's safe to say for a lot of us that collect a lot of that type of film. Eureka is fast becoming just more respected. The amount of attention that they put into everything, and that's obviously not to disparage 88 Films. They do great work as well. It seems like Eureka is just above and beyond.
Yeah, Eureka, interesting. I think, they didn't get any of the Shaw Brothers releases, but I think they've gotten their hands on a lot of Golden Harvest stuff. And I think a lot of people are, from what I've experienced, you kind of lean more towards Shaw Brothers, or you lean more towards Golden Harvest. And I think right now, personally, I've collected a lot of Shaw Brothers over the years, so I'm very, very familiar with those movies. And now I'm very excited about the idea of these Golden Harvest movies being released. So yeah, Eureka are doing wonderful work.
And they've got a huge year ahead of them. I mean, Dreadnought alone is enough to get people excited.
Absolutely. It's the year of Yuen Biao, it seems. They're putting out, I think, a film called On the Run, which is one of Yuen Biao's movies I've never seen. I believe it's not really a martial arts film. There's not many fight scenes in it, I believe, but I'm definitely going to get my hands on it. I'm looking forward to. I love that, though. I love when I've collected kung fu movies for, almost 25 years now. And to find a movie that I haven't seen before, or that I haven't seen in this long, is so exciting. And to see it in crisp 2K, 4K, whatever it may be, it's just amazing. I mean, this may be early. There's been rumors, shall we say, that maybe the Tiger Cage series are getting a release in 4K. That's just my mind can't handle that.
I have heard the first two. I'm hoping that we get the whole series, but
yes, fingers crossed.
So speaking of that specifically, what are a couple dream releases that you're hoping would come out other than that in the next, say, year or two?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Weirdly, the one movie I'm just craving for at the moment, it's not even a rare movie. In fact, it's a movie everyone has seen. I just really, really, really want Blade 2 on 4K. For some reason, I just really, really want it.
It's needed.
Kung Fu, yeah, exactly. I mean, Blade's available, but I would love to see that on 4K. Speaking of Kung Fu movies specifically, which are kind of my niche, I think Shaolin vs. Lama remastered. I mean, Shaolin vs. Lama is one of the definitive classic kung fu movies, and to see that remastered, I know RZA had it streaming on his 36 Cinema site in what looked like a remastered copy. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it. I was too late to stream it, or too late to whatever it was, rent it. But to see that would be incredible. And to see Mystery of Chess Boxing is another movie, and I know there are very good copies of that circulating. I actually have one, but to see it properly remastered in a non-bootleg form would just be magical. And just all of Golden, like Angela Mao films, the fact that they might be coming out this year, it's just really, really wonderful to think that so many of these films are going to get releases. And it's just so many of these old school classics that I don't even, you buy a film years and years ago and you just let it sit on your shelf and you don't think about it for so long. And then these films might not, like the Eureka Cinematic Vengeance. Yep. Those films I hadn't even, World of Drunken Master, no one even thinks about World of Drunken Master. And then to watch it now remastered, it was unbelievable. It was such an experience.
And then, collectors literally across the world are suddenly talking about it again, bringing life to something new from 45 years prior.
Exactly. It's just, yeah, it's really uniting people. You go on Twitter these days, and like all the talk about whether it be Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, whoever it may be, putting out these obscure, wild releases. It's just uniting people in talking about them. It's incredible.
Well, speaking about talking about them, I got to ask, how did the podcast start?
So, obviously, my thing is mostly Kung Fu cinema. I lean more towards Asian cinema than anything, and I have been mostly alone in my love for Kung Fu cinema all my life. A few people here and there, but nothing as kind of crazy as my fascination with them. And I just thought more and more people were getting into them as these releases were getting, Blu-ray releases.
Right.
So I just thought, what if I just try my hardest to get my wife and best friend to like even a couple? Just like I don't even need them to like every single Kung Fu film, just a couple. So I just thought, hey, why not record it? Why not force them, which is what I do, force them once every 2 weeks to watch an Asian movie and to sit down and talk to me about it. And the aim was really to have fun with it, because
right.
I find some, and this is not a slight on any kind of podcast or any kind of YouTube channel, but I find sometimes people are a little too serious when it comes to loving movies. And there's like very, I don't like to throw around the word pretentious, but sometimes people are pretentious,
Yeah, completely agree.
With the Food for Thought podcast, I want to be able to talk about the movie, get their opinions, discuss, the ins and outs of the movie, but then make a dick joke or two along the way. I mean, that's what we're all about. We're just about having fun, and most of the time, I'll admit, they don't like the film. So that's just the way it is.
Perfect level of banter too. The way the three of you just play off each other is great. Listening. Oh gosh, what was the most recent episode? It wasn't Prodigal Son. You did one after that as well.
That was just Cyrus wasn't on board for that one. We did Jailbreak.
That's right, Jailbreak
film. Yeah, that was the most recent one, and then we have an episode we're recording this week as well. With hopefully Cyrus will be back in the saddle for that one.
The scenes that you describe, and I can wholly relate, because I've got a wife that you've heard me talk about on the channel. She appreciates a lot of it, but we've got 2 young kids, so she's exhausted, so she'll fall asleep, or she'll, we'll watch like Demon Wind or something, and she's like, "Why are we watching these people in a dollar store costume run around a cemetery?" And it's charming.
Yes, exactly. I can't get my wife to watch any dubbed movies, so she won't watch dubbed Kung Fu movies. So that's like what 45% of my collection I can't show her. But it's just, there's something really, really fun about, or something really, really just enjoyable about those moments where they say, "Oh, I did like that film.
Right.
I really enjoyed it." Like my wife, she seems to be warming up to the genre as a whole. Cyrus, not so much.
My favorite thing is when they, especially your wife, trying to describe a specific scene, and she'll be like, the one outside where there was just this barrage of fists, and they were by the trash can, and it's the most obscure things that she's grabbing onto to describe it. And to me, that's like the essence of martial arts, because so much of it, a lot of people complain that they just blend together, because a lot of it's a showcase for fighting. Let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And, I love, I think in one episode, she referred to a dojo. I think it was Fist of Legend, actually, the Jet Li film. I think she referred to a dojo as a Kung Fu house. And it's just like she gives people nicknames as well, because she can't remember, because they have, most of the time they have Chinese names, and she can't remember the Chinese names. So she gives them like a mustache guy or something like that. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's most of the time we're there strictly for the fight scenes. I, over the years, have grown to love, let's say like the comedy in Hong Kong films. And, to some extent, I like the filmmaking. But yeah, let's be honest. I mean, the fights are why we're all there.
Exactly. So one of the things that I have really tried to hold on to with the film, obviously, and For those that have been around the channel a long time, you've heard me say it probably too many times, is that every single movie has been somebody's favorite movie. So if you were explaining this is Sean in essence, why don't you throw out the 3 most Sean films that you can think of?
Oh, geez. That's
Not to spring it on you or anything.
No, that's actually gonna make me sound somewhat pretentious.
That's fine.
Because even though I do like, you can see like I've got literally kung fu posters on the
Yep.
wall behind me. Kung fu is my thing. That is exactly my genre. But I tend to really, really like my favorite film is Magnolia. I love Magnolia. I tend to go for, it's not, not like artsy films, but
Right.
somewhat mature kind of films that make you think a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
So 3 films that sum me up, it would be a very strange mix. It would be something like Magnolia, then it would be like a Jackie Chan film, like The Young Master. And then it would be, and here's an obscure film you may not know, or you might know. It's a Jamie Foxx film, and I don't know what year it's from, but it's called Booty Call.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a comedy from like 1990,
94?
somewhere around there. And that is like me in a nutshell. Like I love I love The Master. I love Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I love those type of films, but I love the kung fu. But then I love stupid, dumb comedies as well. Yeah, I like to think I'm fairly good. I don't stick to just a single genre, really.
That's why I always laugh when I go to log something in my Letterboxd, because I have my my 4 favorite films listed there right now, and I haven't changed it in probably a good 6 or 8 months. I was changing it for a while. I've got Green Room, The Fly,
Great,
Black Christmas, and then out of nowhere, Muppets Christmas Carol.
That's great. Those first 3 are fantastic films. I don't even think I've seen Muppets Christmas Carol, so I can't comment on that.
Wow, that's
yeah. I was never a Muppet guy. For some reason, I just never kind of latched onto the Muppets growing up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They got to hit you at the right age, and if they don't, they're past you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So tonight we're talking about horror, and specifically we're talking about underrated horror. We both picked 5 films, but with that, and we're talking about you going to Video Nasties. Do you remember the first horror film you ever saw?
I do. It was when I was too young, definitely too young. I must have been around. If I was going to take a swing, see, it's funny that the first real horrific thing I ever saw that sticks in my memory and scared the hell out of me as a kid was Michael Jackson's Thriller video.
Of course, a lot of us are like that.
Really hit me as a kid. But the first feature-length horror film I ever saw was A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nice.
Yeah, once that hit VHS in the UK, I think my mum rented it one night. And she just let me stay. I don't even know what year that came out. What year was Nightmare on Elm Street?
First one was 84?
So maybe it was a few years after it hit rental, because I was born in 82, so I definitely didn't watch it that young. So maybe I watched it when I was about 9, if I was going to take a swing. So somewhere around 8, 9-ish. And yeah, it didn't freak me out, but it did enough for me. Like the one part that really did creep me out. Do you remember when the centipede crawls out of the girl's mouth?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that really messed me up as a kid. But it kind of did spark a little fire inside me and got me interested in the idea of like these, I don't know, more darker films, I suppose.
Right.
And from then, yeah, it was kind of, I got more into action. I definitely did a Schwarzenegger face as a young kid. But then when I hit early teens, I suppose, is when I really jumped into it. And by the age of 14, 15, I was watching Cannibal Holocaust and getting into that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good life. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's get started, huh? What
right.
is your number 1 underrated horror film you want to shed some light on?
All right, this took me some time. I must admit that when we first brought up this topic, I was like, oh, easy. I'll come up with 5, no problem.
Right.
I came up with about 20. and then I really had to try and whittle it down. So I'm actually surrounded by Blu-rays right now. So I've got a few I can hold up.
Let's see, how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I brought my list. I had about 20 as well. I brought it down to 8, and then tonight I
Okay,
had to really force myself to only grab 5. We can talk about some discards after too.
that's good. So my first one would be this little gem. Oh, my light. Blood Rage.
Nice.
Blood Rage is I think it says on the back, it was made in 1983, but it did not come out till 1987.
Shelved.
And yeah, and you can kind of see why if you watch the film. It is certainly. I'm a big slasher fan. I mean, that's really
Same.
my subgenre. I love slasher films, and Blood Rage is equal parts fantastic slasher, super gory, ultra violent, great stuff, but it's also very cheesy, very silly, very goofy, and the plot is ludicrous. It's about two twins. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, but it's about
yeah.
two twins. One of them murders someone as a young kid, frames the other twin for it, and then it's actually weirdly it's a Thanksgiving movie. It's one of the few Thanksgiving movies, or Thanksgiving horrors, I should say. And it's a wild ride in all the right ways. It is. There's a fantastic line where I can't remember when it happens, but I think he chops someone up and there's blood on his blade, and he famously says it's not cranberry sauce to someone, I think he says it twice in the film, and it's kind of those cheesy one-liners, and it's just great. It's so much fun, and I didn't find it until recently. So for me, for a long time, it was not even an underrated film. It was completely kind of overlooked by me. I hadn't even seen it. I think I discovered it on maybe a streaming service, and then this is the Arrow release I had to pick up. But it is just charming in all the wrong and right ways. It's just one of those films.
Yep.
The ending is bonkers. It's just great. And surprisingly, the lead actor, who I don't know his name. Oh, it doesn't say it on here. But the lead actor, he plays two roles. Obviously, he plays the twins. And he does a marvelous job at playing kind of the goofy, delicate, shall we say, twin, and then the evil serial killer twin.
Two fully different personalities. Very well done.
Absolutely. And he does a wonderful, wonderful job. And he has a mother in it, and the mother is absolutely crazy. It's just a gem. It's just perfect 80s cheese. And if anyone were to ask me, what is my favorite 80s slasher, this would be up there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is rare.
Yeah, it's up there but it's not up there as in it's the finest.
Of course.
Yeah. But comfort food, it's very much a case of, I just love watching it.
It's a fun thing to say about that film. Comfort food.
Yes. It's
and that era really specifically really exploded the popularity of that film. It was out of the zeitgeist completely, and then that came around, and suddenly, the cranberry sauce memes were everywhere. Fangoria was talking about it again. It was on Shudder for like a year and a half.
That's where I think I first saw it, on Shudder. Yeah, and then I had to pick up the Blu-ray.
It has permeated everyone in the horror scene now, and it's crazy. A common, like, it's Thanksgiving, gotta watch it. So
yeah, it's just, I think it's one of those films where you could just invite people over and just sit around with, whatever your poison is, and just sit around and just enjoy it on a big screen TV and just have a bunch of laughs.
Just laugh like hell.
Exactly.
My first one is not one that gives you a lot of laughs, and a lot of people are going to laugh because this is done by a director that is not underrated in the least bit. However, he gets talked about for about 8 other films before this one. Okay. And I think more people need to pay attention to John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness.
Good film. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a good film.
This is one of his best films, I think. And I always appreciated it, but I never loved and respected it in that sense of this is an incredible masterpiece until recently. I think it was 2018 probably. And I think I've told the story on the channel before, but my wife surprised me with tickets to a local theater that did a Carpenter Fest every fall. And in one night, we saw Assault on Precinct 13, Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness. And seeing all three of those on the big screen just reignited passion for those three films that I did not see possible. This was the Scream Factory release. This is still in print, still able to be bought very cheap, commonly found everywhere. It is a psychological horror that is filled with all kinds of Lovecraftian goodness, and really, it is a Sam Neill masterwork. It is probably, I think, his best movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it. In fact, I would love to pick it up. It's one of those films that I've kind of forgotten about and not realized that I should have in my collection, and I definitely should. And I do recall. I don't recall the film as an entirety, but I definitely remember certain moments where I'm just like, oh yeah, that is really, really good. And this is probably blasphemous. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway. I'm not a big fan of John Carpenter's like action movies.
Right.
For example, I'm one of the few people that does not like Big Trouble in Little China. It's just not my film, but I love his horror. So it's definitely one that I would love to have. It's one of those. It's if I recall, it's quite a not surreal, but it's quite a strange film.
It's it can be kind of mindfucky.
Yes, exactly. You summed it up perfectly. Yeah, I was trying to be polite, but yes,
it is. When you say something like I don't remember, the full film, but I remember certain scenes. That's kind of the film in general, because it makes sense when you watch it, but then when you go home, certain things are going to strike you, and it kind of toys with you after you watch it, and it makes you go, "Damn, I need to see it again." And it's one of those that I keep going back to because it rewards a rewatch in a way that some films, they reward rewatches because you get things out of it. But this film, you get it all out of it the first time. It's just, wow, like I want this feeling more often. And it's one of those that feels like a brand new watch each time almost.
Yeah, you've got me really wanting to watch it now. Yeah, I think
that's my job.
Yeah, no, you've done a hell of a sell there, because I really need to pick that up. Yeah, it's a film definitely from my past. I watched it back even on the VHS days. I used to watch it a lot, but it's kind of left my memory a little bit.
Right. All right, number 2.
All right, number 2 is going to be a bit of a strange one because I don't want to say too much about it, and that's because everyone should go blind into The Wailing.
Yes, please.
Yes. So if you don't know anything about The Wailing, keep it that way. Do not Google it. You can look at a plot synopsis. That's fine. It's not going to give you too much. But it is a Korean horror film. It's obviously not North Korea. It's South Korea, and it is. I can't even explain it. It's not really a ghost story, but it's definitely about a town being haunted in a way.
I have been calling it, if I may, it freak folk horror.
Nice. Yes, definitely folk horror. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Korea, they make stunning films. South Korea are just they better than anyone. They do dark cinema, kind of creepy, ominous stuff very, very well. Even their thrillers, like some of their even action thrillers, are very. You take a film like The Man from Nowhere, even that is very dark and kind of grim film, and this just takes it to another level. It's dark. It's a long film. You have to invest in it. I think it's maybe close to 2.5 hours, and it is just a hell of a journey. And it leaves you, again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it leaves you with a lot of questions at the end. And I very much appreciate it for that. I like horror that makes me go, so was this guy this? Did this happen? Did it not happen? And I like to think about films after I'm done with it. And The Wailing just, it gets under your skin in a very unique way that I don't often experience with horror. I think it's very easy for hopefully this film won't be on the list. I don't think it's underrated, so I'm gonna mention it. I think films like Martyrs. It is on your list? Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Martyrs definitely gets under your skin. It gets under your skin in a unique way, in that it's very visceral. It's very it's just grim and horrible and bloody
Right.
and just violent. I actually watched it last week, so it's fresh in my brain.
It's a
But the
great
way,
movie to say it gets under your skin. That wasn't a pun
yeah,
at all.
exactly, yeah. And the Wailing does it in a very it's more of a mental or psychological way, even though it does have elements of physical horror in it.
Right.
And I just think it's a very clever and very almost like a brave film, because to be that long and so definitely not traditional. It's untraditional in every sense of the term, and it's just a fantastic ride, and I wish more people would watch it. And I know it's an undertaking because a lot of people see the length, a lot of people see subtitles and immediately shut off and just like, I'm not going to watch that. And it's a shame because it deserves far more respect than it's getting. And I know the people that do watch it typically do love it, but I just wish more people set their eyes on it. It's wonderful.
I agree. I do think more people need to see it, and sadly, I echo the words of Bong Joon-ho after Parasite more now than ever, because if you can get over the bottom 3 inches of that screen, you're going to fall in love with a whole world of cinema that you never thought possible.
It's so sad. I mean, it's so sad that people still in this day and age refuse to watch subtitle films. It's nuts. You're missing out on so many gems. So many.
I love that I said that, and I just looked in all 5 of mine are English films.
I think that is my only foreign language one.
Well, the sad thing is, like, probably 85% of the stuff I watch, my wife is like, I'm gonna have to read this one, aren't I? I'm like, oh wait, not this one tonight. No, that's a rarity. So yeah, I really watch a lot of foreign cinema. So I'm kind of shocked that this is how it shook out. My number 2, though, is one that I met the director of this film at the same theater that showed the Carpenter Fest, and I appreciate this guy so much for his filmmaking, so much for his indie point of view on things, and the thing that made me fall in love with Adam Green is Frozen. And this is the example that I use when I talk about a subgenre that I created in my mind called empathetic horror. And this is one where the only reason this film is scary because you go, fuck, how would I get out of that if I were in that situation?
Yeah.
And that's really the only terrifying part of the film. This, for those that don't know, this is a movie about I think it's 3 people. They go on a ski lift, and just based on the perfect turn of events, they get stuck on a ski lift over a holiday weekend. So people are not going to be there for days. All the lights are shut off. They are abandoned. It's freezing cold, obviously. And a lot of stuff happens. It is the perfect storm of bad events. Somebody ends up falling. Somebody, there are wolves nearby.
Yeah, always wolves.
it is just a calamity type movie where everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it is terrifying for that. It is underseen. I think it came out. Let's see. I think it was about 2010. And around that time, it was very focused on other things. I think that it's one of those classic in-between films. It was not gory enough to be like torture porn, and it was a little too gory for the classic horror-minded people. So because of that, it got just tossed to the side. And Adam Green has turned into somebody that, I mean, first off, he's made 4 Hatchet films since then. And mastered his craft, and they're all great. I love Hatchet, but Adam Green gets focused on for a variety of other things, and I think Frozen might be up there as maybe his best, like, top 3 films easily.
I would say so. That was actually on my honorable mentions, and I actually took it off my honorable mentions earlier because I had too many. So I do love Frozen. I think it's a wonderful film, and I think you nailed it. It's horror. It's kind of situational horror done perfectly.
Right.
Yeah. Everything about it is just very tense, and great film. I need to revisit that one. I don't actually own that one.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Is it short as well?
Oh yeah, it's I think it's like 80 minutes. Oh, 93. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of standard. Yeah. I remember that one being great. I haven't seen it in some time.
It goes by very quickly. It feels like a very short film.
Yeah. I have another similar film like that on kind of out here, but I'm not actually going to pick that one. So, but I will mention it later.
Nice.
I'm just realizing how many of mine are slashers.
That's fine.
So my next one is a film that I know that you're a fan of, and that is Intruder.
Nice.
Yep. So who put out this? This is 88 films.
88 films, slasher classics.
Yeah. Intruder it's just a perfectly, and I mean this like in every sense of the word, a perfectly contained slasher. If you haven't seen it, it is in a grocery store or supermarket. It's solely in a supermarket, grocery store, and it's a standard slasher film. I mean, there's nothing like different about it than any other slasher film, but the fact that it is in this one place, and the fact that it has some of my favorite, well, it's got one of my favorite kills of all time. I should say I'm a huge gore fan. I love gore. That's really my thing. When it comes to horror, the kind of more gruesome, the better. I don't typically go for torture porn so much. Not often, you know. I'll occasionally lean that way, but if it's a slasher and it's just like, for example, Hatchet, you know, the Hatchet films, love them because they're just so crazy gory. And Intruder is just a wonderful example of that.
It goes there.
Yeah, and it's surprising because, I mean, what year did it come out? I can't even see, my light's not bright enough. But for that time, I mean, you had a number of, you know, it probably came out around the time of at least one of the Friday the 13th films. And I think it takes it to that extra, it goes a little bit beyond the Friday the 13th and really delivers on the gory scenes. It's got Ted Raimi in it. Love Ted Raimi.
89, I think.
89? I thought it was earlier than that. Wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah, 89.
Bruce Campbell and Bruce Campbell's in it?
Officer Howard, yeah.
Oh, he is. Yes, of course, yes. And it's not wait, am I getting confused between my Raimis now?
Both Raimis are in it.
Both Raimis are in it. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, there's a particular scene with basically a meat saw, which is just incredible. And back in the day when I purchased this film on VHS, they actually trimmed it, completely cut it. And that particular saw scene, you know, you saw like the very beginning of it, and then it just skipped the rest of it. And it wasn't until years later when I got my hands on like a DVD copy, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I didn't even know that I was cut out of it. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is a whole new just layer to the film." So, Intruder's wonderful. It's again, very much comfort food to me. Just a film that I will go back to again and again.
Right.
Just great stuff. Yeah, big fan.
Intruder is, you know, I've been ringing the bell for this one for a good 6 or 7 months at this point. But the most unique thing is that it has, just saying that it's set in a grocery store really doesn't sell it enough, because I think one of the hard parts is we now have another movie that a lot of horror fans love that is kind of set mostly in a grocery store in the last 15 years, and that's The Mist. And so when they think of a horror film, they think of The Mist that is set in a grocery store, but it's not the same at all.
No.
Intruder is one of the most uniquely set slasher films of all time, like by a long shot.
Yeah, it really is. It's interesting how much The Mist and Intruder are basically polar opposites, really. If you compare them to each other, sure, they're both in a grocery store, but they are vastly different.
Right.
Yeah. Very interesting.
My number 3, and I'm just noticing that I feel like I may have been fairly successful in choosing 5 very different genres, which is a good thing. This next one I think is underrated because it came in the remake craze, and during the mid, like 2004 to 2011, everybody thought everything was a remake, so it must be shit. So why would I even watch it?
I think I know which one it is.
I don't think so.
Oh, really?
As an underrated remake, I think my vote goes to The Crazies.
Oh no, you threw me a curveball there. I thought it was going to be Evil Dead.
No, that's fairly highly lauded. The Crazies is one that people just forget exists.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, this is a horror film starring Timothy Olyphant, who has exploded in popularity.
Absolutely.
And obviously, people are going to think of him with the. I honestly have not even seen it yet. The Netflix show that he was in with Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
So everybody's thinking like, yeah, he's related to horror, but that's the only thing that he's done besides this that really sticks him into a situation that is at least horror adjacent. But this, he is full in. And nothing against the Romero film. I think it's a fine film. I think that it is limited in the way that a lot of Romero films were limited, primarily due to budget and the time when he made him. I think if Romero came 15 years later, we would still be being blown away by things that he could think up because he was such an auteur. But The Crazies is the perfect example of a remake being done with new technology, with a at least very similar story, done in a way that makes it modernized and makes it feel different enough that it feels relevant. And The Crazies, especially coming out of a pandemic, is a movie that everybody should go back and watch. It is gory to a point. It is superiorly acted compared to most films of its time by a long shot. Timothy Olyphant obviously is bringing something to a film that only somebody from like Deadwood could bring, and he elevates the movie just by being there. And it's certainly a borderline masterpiece for a remake. I think that it's pretty top notch. It's probably top 5 horror remakes of all time for me.
Yeah, probably. It just has. I love the fact that it's, you watch a zombie film and zombies are the concept of zombies are so outlandish, and it's very, that will never happen. But The Crazies has this like. Obviously, it's probably never going to happen, but it's a little more human than zombies. The fact that it's people going crazy, it's people. It's almost like slightly not rabid, but they still have that humanity to them,
right?
And I think that makes it a little bit more interesting than your standard zombie film.
And not to mention, it came out. I was trying to think of the year that it came out, and I just looked up. It's 2010. A lot of these are around the same time. Awkward. It came out in 2010 when zombies had come back because they were gone for a long time, and then around Shaun of the Dead they started to come back, and so they were back and they were still strong, but they'd not really re-jumped the shark yet. So it was still there were a lot of them in the zeitgeist, but it because of that it got overlooked a little bit because it was just another zombie thing. So it is different though. It's very much like to me it's a very should I go there? It is a U.S. version of 28 Days Later in a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree. I think that's a perfect description of it. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Good film. I'm going to have to write these down now. So many films I forget about. I'm too focused on stupid fucking kung fu films. Need to get my brain off them. My next film is not a remake, but it is a sequel. And I think it's the first film is universally loved, but the sequel does not get enough love in my eyes. It is The Strangers Prey at Night. And when I first saw this film, let me give you a bit of backstory. I love The Strangers.
Same.
I think it's one of the most terrifying. Yeah, probably one of the most terrifying films of all time. It's the perfect home invasion film in that it's not cheesy in any way. It is just absolute terror from start to finish. And at the end, not going to spoil it, but it's got a very bleak ending. Right. I think most people know that by now. And the sequel takes that and does not run with it. It flips it and just makes it a standard slasher film. However, it's a damn good standard slasher film. It's really, really good. It's got a crazy good setting. It's set in a trailer park.
Right.
And it's just, there's nothing fancy about it other than it's very well shot. It's got great cinematography in it. There's a great scene. There's a swimming pool scene and it's lit with these neon lights and it's incredibly well shot. And just, I think not enough people give it credit because they expected The Strangers 2 to be Strangers. And I did the same thing. the first time I watched it, I was just like, no, this isn't what I want. I want The Strangers. This
Yep.
isn't giving me the grim, kind of grisly, just horrifying themes that are in the first one. It's just giving me straight up slasher. And then I watched it again years later. And I was just like, oh, this is actually really good. I mean, it's violent. It's got Christina Hendricks in it, and who's complaining about Christina Hendricks being in the film?
That was my biggest complaint the first time, is that she is only in it for the first like 12 minutes.
She is. Yes, unfortunately, she does meet her ending a little early, but it's nice to see her. She's underrated actually as an actress. I don't see her in enough things.
I fully agree.
Yeah, it's very strange that she's not in more stuff,
especially after Mad Men.
Yeah, and she was in. Was she in Ryan Gosling's directorial debut? I forget what that's called.
Oh,
everyone forgot about it because it was apparently really, really bad. I don't remember that.
Right.
I think she
look it up.
Yeah, she did nothing after that. It seems. I think she's in a maybe.
I know she was on another TV show where she was robbing banks or something like that.
Yes. That may still be going. I'm not sure.
I don't pay attention to stuff like that much anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a shame. She's really good, and she's good in this film. But yeah, she does get spoiler. She does get offed earlier on.
Lost River is the name of the film he directed.
Lost River,
and she is the #1 billed actress in that.
There you go.
That was 2014.
Yeah, so sad. But yeah, if anyone's looking for a good modern slasher, I think this one falls in line with. I'm not going to bring any up just in case they're mentioned on the show, but there's a lot of I think early 2000s slasher films that are
none of them will be brought up. You can compare if you want.
Well, perfect example. I think this film is wonderful. I think House of Wax is fantastic, and I think this is up there with that style of slasher. It's easy, it's simple, it's violent, it gets to the point, and it's, as far as I recall, it's relatively short. Standard 90-minute film, and it's just a good time. And those characters, the strangers, I suppose, are just very iconic, I think, especially from the first film, but they work in the sequel as well. They're pretty scary, the masks and just general demeanor is, I think, very iconic to me. It's something that kind of stuck in my brain, and I love them as villains, and I don't think they're brought up very much in the pantheon of classic horror villains, but these guys are great. Good film.
Two things about that one. The first is, I think that they shot themselves in the foot by waiting. God, the second one came out like 9 years after the first one or something, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if they would have done it a good 2.5 years later, it would have permeated a little deeper, because it, not to lump this title necessarily on the first one, but it kind of is a modern classic. It is viewed as being on this pedestal, and when you give it 9 years to get into the veins of the horror community, you kind of fuck yourself over unless it's exactly like it and continues the story perfectly. And we're seeing that with Friday the 13th, with Halloween, with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with everybody complaining that this is not exactly what I was hoping for. But if they would have done it, I can't remember what year the first one came out. It had to have been like 2009, maybe?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Something like that. If it came out in 2010 or 11, I think that it probably would have been praised a hell of a lot more.
I think so. It definitely came out at the wrong time and just fell under a lot of radars, or just people just didn't bother with it. Maybe saw the trailer and it just wasn't what they wanted. And I think that's a shame. The First Strangers is one of the only films my wife will not watch. She does not do well with home invasion films. She's not a big fan because it's real. It could happen.
Right.
She watched The Purge, which is fine, but she will not watch The Strangers. So I think I have a Patreon at the moment for Food for Thought, and I think at some point I'm gonna maybe do an episode where I convince her to watch The Strangers. But we'll see.
With The Strangers, I've had somebody ask me, literally, they said something almost verbatim, such as, "Why does the second one suck so much?" And I was like, hold on.
Yeah.
To reframe this, and this is the exact advice I gave them, which helped with this one person. I said, you should be treating The Strangers franchise, I guess if you're looking at 2 as a franchise, as Alien and Aliens.
Yes, that's perfect.
They are
Absolutely
both
great way.
really well done, but absolutely different genres. The first
Yep.
one is Home Invasion. The second one is a slasher that is paying this perfect like honorary mention of I'd say almost more like early '90s slashers
Yeah, oh yeah,
to a
definitely.
lot of it, and it's just a complete 180. And I agree, it's not a masterpiece in my book, but it is so much fun and
Yeah.
works on every level.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that more people don't talk about it. But yeah, by all means, not a masterpiece, but definitely a fun film. A really good one to watch.
My fourth one that I'm going to talk about tonight, I don't believe, now before me being the physical media person, let me make sure before I make this claim, I don't think this is on Blu-ray anywhere in the world yet. And so my wish to the Blu-ray gods is to have this come out. Okay, so only the second one is, which I still have not seen. Everybody hated found footage movies for the longest time. And one of my recent discoveries is Hell House LLC. And so few people watch this damn film that
Yep.
they don't know that this might be a modern masterpiece
It's
in every
fantastic.
sense of the word. The basement in this film is terrifying. The fact that haunts have gotten more and more not only just prevalent out in the real world, but more realistic and
Yeah.
more people are participating in them. That this taking that and running with the idea and showing you behind the scenes on how some of it's done, but then terrifying the people putting it on is such a great way to like seep into my bones as I'm watching it.
Yeah.
It is a found footage movie that is very well made. Just like a lot of found footage movies, it feels like a little lower quality, even though it's not. It is filmed very well. They frame it in a realistic way, and it's actually scary. It is
Yes.
done in a way that feels like that feeling that you're chasing that you used to feel all the time watching these films. Hell House LLC. Everybody needs to see it that hasn't.
Yeah, I caught that one probably early last year on Shudder. I actually, or it could even been on Prime Video. I don't recall. I just took a wild swing at it. I just wanted just a horror film to watch, and I put it on, and I loved it. And not that I'm anything special, but I don't often get scared by films. I'm not a guy who
Right.
gets super scared.
Same.
That is a pretty scary film.
Yep.
There's something in the basement which is pretty scary. Which I won't reveal, but it's a pretty terrifying film. Unfortunately, it is plagued by two very poor sequels.
There are two sequels. I only knew of one.
Oh, there's two sequels. Yeah, the third one is an absolute nightmare. Yeah, it's terrible.
Shit, now I have to watch it.
No, that's what I did. I watched the second one. The second one didn't do much for me. I found it repetitious and it didn't really build anything on it. And then I thought, well, I have to finish the trilogy. And I watched the third one, and it's awful. It's an awful film.
Damn.
Yeah. But that first one is a real gem.
I love it.
I'm stuck between two films, and I don't know which one to do. I've done a lot of slashers, so I kind of don't want to do a slasher film. Okay, I'm going to switch it up. But I don't know if this one is underrated. You can tell me if this is underrated.
Sure.
You've probably seen it. Okay. If this isn't underrated, then I'll pick another one. So this is genuinely, with no irony whatsoever, one of my favorite horror films of all time. And that is Chopping Mall. Is that one underrated, you think? I know it's not like a cult following.
Right. I think it's probably fairly rated. However, I think it's still criminally underseen.
Yes, I think that's what I struggled with, actually. There was underseen and underrated. I think my other one, I was actually going to pick Stage Fright.
Ooh, nice.
In fact, let's do Stage Fright instead. Let's do Stage Fright. Stage Fright is fresh in my brain. I actually watched it yesterday. So
nice.
if anyone isn't familiar, it's also known as Aquarius. I don't know why it's known as Aquarius, but it's known as Aquarius for some reason. And it is... If Intruder is a contained horror film, this is an even more unique contained horror film for multiple reasons. One, it's set in a theater, or not even a theater. It's a bunch of people are rehearsing a play, but it doesn't seem to have any seats or anything, so it's not really a theater. But they're rehearsing a play in this building. And the other unique thing about it is the killer has the head of an owl, which you can obviously see by the cover. That is the killer. He has the head of an owl. That is not just clever cover art. That's legitimately what he looks like. He's not, supernatural. It's actually a mask. But it's such an interesting film in that there's something about the atmosphere of it. It's truly, it feels like a play. The film itself feels like a play. And I think that's very, very interesting. It's got kind of notes of giallo as well to it. Not quite as not quite as mysterious, because you know who the killer is kind of off the bat. But I think it's very artsy, this film. I think it's I think the director originally worked with Argento on a few films. I'm not sure what films he worked on, but
it screams a lot of opera.
Yes, very much so. Yes, I only watched opera recently. That's actually my favorite Argento. I only I caught it last month. I'm with Argento. I'm fairly kind of, he's very hot and cold with me. I either really like his stuff or I don't like his stuff. Yeah. So is it Tenebrae? Tenebrae? Is that how you pronounce it?
Tenebrae.
Tenebrae I didn't like. I couldn't get into that, but Deep Red I loved. So yeah.
Deep Red, Suspiria, and Opera are the three main that I go to with the Argento.
Yes, Suspiria I very much enjoyed. Big fan. And this one, is very. I think it's like Argento films. It's very artsy, but it's got that extreme gore in it that obviously I like as well. But it's a nice contrast, and the characters are kind of cheesy and a bit wacky. And there's the, there's like. It's hammy. It's like it's theater kids. They're very hammy and over the top.
They're very garish.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's great, and it's got one of the most unique scenes I've ever seen in a horror film. There's a scene where basically long story short, the killer kind of collects all the bodies that he's murdered, and he kind of stages them and puts them together, and it's like a 5-minute scene of just him placing these bodies and then just sitting on a chair just staring at this girl for like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and it's crazy, but it works so well. It's so like chilling and very, like I said, it's very unique, very unusual scene, but
has a very intimidating climax.
Yes. Just a really, really. I knew nothing about this film. I'll be honest. I knew nothing about it until a few months ago, and then I saw it on streaming. Then I picked this is the Shameless release recently in the UK. I think it's fairly. Oh no, I thought it was fairly bare bones, but it's not. It's got 3 interviews. That's it though. So maybe bare bones. But yeah, really, really good. I love the look of the killer. I think the owl head may not have worked in 1,000 other films. If someone tried to do a big owl head on a killer, it's so close to being so dumb that it's annoying. In this, it just weirdly works. It just works. An owl with a chainsaw. Just, who knew?
It's one of those films, too, where speaking about it, if you haven't seen it, you're probably thinking a bunch of people in basically what is a theater. Why don't you just leave? But the film does a really great job of showing why nobody can leave and why, this guy who is clearly just lost his mind puts an owl head on, and it makes sense, which is so hard to understand that makes sense in a film. But then you see it and you're like, oh, goddamn, like they actually wrote this in a way that, I'm all in.
Yeah, it's very well done. It's very well done. It's a film that really does toe that line of being possibly too insane for its own good, but it reels it in, it pulls it in at all the right times, and it just makes everything work. And I love it. It's definitely up there as probably top 20 horror films of all time for me.
Wow, that's awesome. It's a good one. One genre that I have not touched on at all tonight that is big with me is I'm a big fan of body horror. So my last one tonight is a modern body horror that gets overlooked a lot. And when I first saw this, I got a lot of the same feelings that I got when I saw Splinter from 2008-ish, I think.
So good. Great film.
Splinter is fantastic. I'm hoping you've seen this one so that you can hopefully gush with me. But I'm a big fan of 2014's Starry Eyes. Starry Eyes does not get, I feel like, any attention nowadays, as
No.
talked about in the modern zeitgeist, in terms of what it is able to achieve in a fairly short film and with actors that are basically no names in any sense of it. It is essentially about a character that wants to break into Hollywood and has to, I won't necessarily say Harvey Weinstein it, but gets pretty close. And there are some almost like supernatural things that happen with that. And
yes,
the body horror here goes for it in ways that you are not prepared for when they start with this storyline. It feels like it's going to be a psychological horror, and then they flip it on its head, and you are just fucked for the rest of the film. And
yeah, it's grisly.
Starry Eyes is one that I through what I do for work, there's a lot of times where I can watch something while I'm in meetings and go back and forth sometimes. And I saw it while streaming like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was one of those where I thought I was watching it, but then I got called back, and by the time I got back to it, it had mind fucked me 3 times, and so I was gone. And I had to watch it again, but then I realized my wife has to see this one because she is super going to appreciate it. So I went and showed it, and I, on that second watch, when I could understand it, I fell deeply in love with that film. And it is coming up on a good 10-year release anniversary here in just about 2 more years, and I really hope that something happens where people can start to understand what they were able to achieve, because it really is just a great film.
Yeah, and it's fairly highbrow for high concept for a essentially what is a body horror film.
Right.
I think it does a lot with what it has. And I saw that one. I saw that one a number of years ago. I haven't watched it since. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, even. But I remember being a fan of it. I couldn't. Yeah, I for example, you said there's a bunch of no-name people. I was going to say I couldn't name anyone who's in it, but I think they're not that popular or not that famous, I should say. But yeah, I remember enjoying that one quite a bit.
The names in there: Alexandra Esso. She was in something else recently, but she had not been in anything big before then. Amanda Fuller, Fabian Therese, Pat Healy is probably the biggest name in it. Mark Center, Maria Olsen, Shane Coffey, Natalie Castillo, and that's pretty much it.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
Those could have been names from a yearbook, and I would not have argued with you.
Yeah, I could have a second cousin called Natalie Castillo. I honestly don't know.
So, what are some of your honorable mentions that you want to talk about?
So, I had a whole bunch of honorable mentions. I think some I'll just breeze through. Some I actually grabbed out of my collection. Not to stay on the slasher, but I had Pieces, which I don't think is underrated. I think people, once they set their eyes on Pieces, it's great. But this little film I watched today, and this is underrated, and this is The Ruins.
Highly underrated.
Yes. I watched that a while ago, and I rewatched it today just to make sure. It's a really good film. And one thing that The Ruins does, which very few films do, is it's got psychological horror. It's got situational horror. It's got gore. It's got like literal body horror. It's got a lot of themes and ideas in it that just work in this one isolated space. It's very, very good. And watching the unrated cut, it's actually surprisingly quite a bit more grisly than the non or the rated cut, I should say. And it was nice to see that. But it's a very clever film. Very very clever concept,
Right.
Killer, this isn't a spoiler because you find it out early in the film, but killer plants basically. But
I think it got overran again with similar movies that came out around it, because people always lump that in with Turistas for some reason, even though it's not the same at all.
Yes, I never saw Turistas. Actually,
it's actually pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw. I'm just pulling up my list of. I'm just going to do a quick rundown of my other honorable mentions. So, I have a shitload of them. So I'll just go quickly. I think a lot of people are watching this film, but not enough people are watching this film. Not enough people are watching and loving The Night House. The Night House is absolutely incredible.
Nice.
One film that never gets talked about, which I really enjoyed, and I'm not sure whether I'm wrong. I think I might be wrong. Have you seen The Boy? 2016's The Boy.
I have not. I've wanted to, and then everybody shit on the sequel so much that it tainted it in my mind. So it's on my list still.
I haven't seen the sequel, but the first one surprised me because it's genuinely interesting and takes you one way and then hits you another, and it's great. I really enjoyed it. So The Boy, more people should have watched Demons, the original Demons film, although the horror fans tend to love that. This film I think is still on Netflix. It's called The Ritual.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a Netflix original, so it will always be there probably.
Very interesting folk horror, and just very, very thematically deep and interesting. Leaves you thinking about it a lot. Love that one. Great special effects in that one as well.
Oh yeah.
And then I think I've got 3 more, which is the Autopsy of Jane Doe, which more people should watch. Fantastic film, and I love this film, and people hate it. The Nun. I know. I think that's probably the worst pick I've got. I'm telling you.
Sean.
No. People misread The Nun, right? People misread it. I think it's like a 90s gothic horror. It feels very 90s. It feels like something it feels like Castle Freak or The Unnameable.
I wish it felt like Castle Freak.
I like The Nun. I watched The Nun last week. I watched it this week just for this show, just to make sure that I liked it. And I like it. I don't own it on Blu-ray, but
everyone hates it, and that means I still think it's overrated.
I stand by that. I stand that being good.
I
don't know why. It's very strange.
Films hit people differently.
Yeah, I don't understand why I like it so much. It just has this very it feels like a horror. I don't know. Anyway, and then my last one would be most people when they talk about French films, they talk about High Tension or they talk about Martyrs. Everyone should watch Inside.
Thank you.
Inside is a wonderful, just very grim, not for the faint of heart horror, and it is incredible. Such a good film. Unfortunately, I don't own that one yet either. Make sure that you don't watch the remake as well. I hear the remake is terrible, but they did Martyrs as well, and apparently the Martyrs remake is terrible. So Inside, otherwise known as, I'm going to try French, I think L'Intérieur. I sounded like I was choking then. But yeah, great film.
Inside, at the moment of recording at least, is streaming on Shudder, as well as about 12 other French extremity films that are rarely ever streaming anywhere, let alone all together at once.
Yeah, I've been looking for them for a while. They've got Frontier on there, and I remember loving Frontier, and I haven't watched it again yet, but I know it's on Shudder. I'm really excited about watching that, and a few others that I haven't seen. I'm a big fan of that French horror wave that came, that was just very grisly, very dark, but very interesting and kind of forward thinking. Yeah, big fan.
I agree. The only few that I had written down that I was going to maybe consider, I've talked about it on the channel enough too much, but Mothman Prophecies from 2002 is, again, it's been 20 years and nobody talks about it because the early 2000s was a black hole of horror. Hardly anything happened from 2000 to 2003, and so everybody just shuts it out of their mind. Another one is Spring from Benson and Moorhead from 2014 or 15.
That's the only one I haven't seen. That one I have not seen.
It is a romantic Lovecraftian creature feature film, basically. And it is so well done and really, really unique. And they're the same guys that did The Endless and a few other films. Benson and Moorhead, they've worked together a lot. They're great. Oh. And then the last one, I didn't include it because I don't know if I would really count it as horror, although it's revenge-ish, and a lot of people just lump that in with horror thriller, and that's Blue Ruin from Jeremy Saulnier. I love Green Room, and Blue Ruin is probably the most realistic revenge film ever made. Yes. It is harrowing, it is gross, it is sweaty, It is uh, it is something that you watch and you go, I feel awful. Put it back in because I want to see it again.
Yeah, that was streaming on Netflix for a long time. I don't know if it still is, but yeah, it's a solid little film. Definitely under the radar when it first came out. I just think no one knew of it. It didn't really
Right.
seem to get an announcement when it came out, but really good. Yeah, fantastic.
And that director, Jeremy Saulnier, who did Green Room, he has worked with the star of Blue Ruin, Macon Blair. I think has been in either all of his films or most of his films.
Does he
And
write them as well? Does Macon Blair write
he
them?
did at least the first couple, I
Okay,
think.
yeah.
But he's not like a household name or anything, but he
No.
carries Blue Ruin to something that he should not be able to, as basically a no credit actor at that time. And it is you are on his side from moment one. It is such a great performance.
Yeah, that's a great film. That's one I definitely need to revisit at some point. But like you said, yeah, it's not horror light, but it's definitely it's like revenge horror, but it kind of walks
Right.
that line between. It's hard to, especially with revenge films, it's hard to nail them down as horror. Even the film called Revenge, it's like such a nasty film, but it's like, is it a horror or is it a thriller or is it
Right.
what is it? Is it just a revenge movie? Yeah, it's hard to really pin it down.
Well, I really appreciate getting to know you tonight. I
Yeah,
hope
thank
you had a
you.
good time. I'd love to have you back
Absolutely.
on sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. This is absolutely awesome. I don't get to talk horror much because I'm all day, every day. I'm talking about kung fu. It's nice.
God
to actually
dang
sit
martial
down and talk
arts.
about horror. I know. Damn them. And now, obviously, people having heard that I like The Nun are like, never talk about horror ever again. You know nothing.
Next time we're going to be ranking the Conjuring films with Food for Thought. Anyways, like I said at the beginning, please go check out his podcast. It is really good work, shining a light on films in a very unique way. Again, it's people that have never seen these films associated with somebody who has seen these films for the most part and loves them and just wants to share that love with others. And it is that passion for cinema that really makes the podcast shine. And I appreciate you guys and everything you do. They also have a Patreon that'll be linked below as well. Go support them. They absolutely deserve every penny of your hard-earned dollars. And again, thank you, Sean, for everything. And we'll talk soon.
No problem at all. Thank you.
See everybody next time.